Innate domains are how you're cursed to see the world, and innate techniques are what you're cursed to do. When you override a space around yourself with your cursed energy, and manifest your domain through it, but then apply your cursed technique, which is your inescapable behavior, through that domain, which is your inescapable worldview, you're able to manifest your overall lifelong curse in the physical world, whatever your curse is as a person. So if you trap other people in your curse, you can attack them with it, which is usually lethal. And this is the strongest form of attack in JJK. You can't escape. I can't do that voice. You can't escape how your life is spent using the way you're limited to see the world to behave the way you're forced to, which is the main idea behind domain expansions. Naoya has projection sorcery, which means a part of his brain that rewards being able to understand how it works ahead of time and flattens other people while making him faster by letting him predetermine and skip through his actions when he deliberately pours cursed energy through it, is always going to be a part of his brain for the rest of his life, which means it's always going to compel him to superficially judge things and rush to conclusions. Even if he had no ability to control his cursed energy, he'd be doing that anyway. Naoya possesses the same technique as his father, Naobito. However, their innate domains differ, which you can see in their difference in worldviews. Naobito recklessly values the traditions of the Zenin clan, so he's willing to make some outsider the next leader no matter what, even if this outsider's been raised by a clan enemy to potentially want to sabotage them, because all Naobito cares is whether it's possible as long as this outsider's been able to inherit their signature technique. He has no compassion for clan members who are weak, and he talks over opponents to share the history of his technique in combat. He was able to coast on his innate talents to become the head of the clan, so he's prideful and neglectfully elitist. But because of this, he allowed his son to be considerably worse. Naoya, as the next generation of this behavior, overly judges everything and everyone other than himself. Not even traditions matter to him, because if there's any reason to criticize or look down on something, he does. So because he will attack you for every little thing, his domain expansion has a giant eye that stares at everyone inside it who isn't him, and freezes every single cell when they try to move, tearing them apart. To be slightly fair to Naoya and Naobito, you can't choose your innate domain. Just like how the soul can form, and then be what everything else is stabilized through, when a person is born, they're also granted an innate domain, which is the way they're developing to process the world around them. Because fundamentally, brain speed latencies and agendas create a gap between objective information and someone's point of view. Your senses pick up signals from the same world as everybody else, but internally, they're only ever processed and fed to you based on a way your brain has specifically been wired. And there's a limit to what you can come across throughout your lifespan, and how the brain you already think with can process the information you come across to shift and transform itself. The foundation of your point of view is mostly set in stone from the really early development of your physical body, and then you're always vulnerable to how you're hardwired. And this makes your perspective mostly predetermined, which is why every single person fundamentally lives in their own world and can never understand or truly communicate with each other. So this worldview, along with its branching potential development, is given a center of gravity too, which someone's inner existence is then stabilized through. And this is what's called an innate domain. Sukuna's is a ribcage with a throne of skulls in the center because he can never escape the curse within him that retaliates against the hierarchical world that rejected his birth and needs him to prove himself by attacking anyone in it to grow stronger through beating them until he's ensured that he's on top of everyone. His technique, which was predetermined to complement this domain, comes from separation. Cursed energy is negative, but can be applied in different conceptual ways, and even to itself. You can remove cursed energy by subtracting it through other negative cursed energy, but you can also turn it positive by multiplying cursed energy with itself, at which point it gains the ability to erase regular cursed energy on contact like a form of antimatter. So in the opposite direction, the ultimate application of cursed energy would be to use it through the concept of division, which Gojo and Sukuna's techniques do in different ways. Gojo divides himself from the rest of the world by being born blessed and then using that advantage to hold everything else back before anything can ever reach him, except for the people he can see and reach and decide to let through. Sukuna divides himself from the rest of the world by attacking and consuming everyone else that tries to confront him as an equal, so he can grow stronger from them and satisfy himself. Shrine is a technique that's meant to be a tool to divide the user from others, so they're not seen as equal and can be elevated to the status of a deity by turning the world and the people around them into offerings. The main method is cutting, which is an optimized form of attack because all you have to do is make a flat cut through a target to cut its vitals in half and have them stop functioning, instead of needing the energy or time to erase the full thing. And as a result of the technique, Sukuna is naturally talented at trading off his potential to make binding vows without a second's thought. But the other method is traditional incineration. Shrine provides projectile slashes to cut the rest of the environment away from targets, all the unappetizing stuff. It provides contact-based slashes that automatically make as many full cuts through the target as it can afford to with the amount of curse energy provided to break down the appetizing stuff. And then it provides slow-moving flames that require a buildup and can only hit one target at a time to cook the offering, and symbolically send it to the deity at the shrine you're leaving the offering at, as a sort of fusion between burning incense and leaving food. Before JJK ended, I assumed the reveal was going to be that because Sukuna is able to immediately make commitments and sever opportunities, Shrine would have just come with the ranged slashes, and he'd used binding vows to make the other two abilities. But that's not the case at all. Shrine comes with the full package, and Yuji just had no time to practice with it in the middle of their battle. Even when he learned how to use it though, and the attacks ended up looking the same as Sukuna's, Yuji's behaviors caused by Shrine were different from Sukuna's because of the differences in their innate domains. While Sukuna's only considered himself, and either challenged or shut out the rest of the world to separate himself from it and soothe his emotional wound, which was the other half of why he was so good at creating binding vows, and the reason his domain was designed to be a pile of skulls he'd sit on like a throne in a giant version of his ribcage. Yuji stayed openly attentive to the world around him, so his innate domain, from what we can see in his domain expansion, seems like a lifelike replica of the places and wildlife he's seen. For Yuji, Shrine is a curse that makes him no longer consider his own well-being as a human, and instead think of himself as a protector for the rest of the world that separates and annihilates harmful parts of it that are proven to be beyond recovery. Fully ending an opponent is done with care and seen as a form of giving up out of necessity, because it seems like there's no other way he can afford to bring about a good outcome. So Yuji's willing to do what he thinks is wrong as a way to end an even larger issue when he can't see an alternative. Which is why in Modulo, he creates a problem when he thinks he should disappear on everyone even though he knows it's not a good answer to what he's dealing with, and then he solves a problem when he's willing to use Mahito to stunt the next generation even though he thinks it's bad to do. This is also why, when you plug Shrine into Sukuna's domain, you get a visible shrine that rapidly and indiscriminately cuts everything around it other than Sukuna himself. But when you plug Shrine into Yuji's domain, you get a peaceful montage of locations he's been to where he can manually trigger the carving out of a specific threat within the area as if it's infected tissue, or something like that. We don't get much of an explanation. For Sukuna, Shrine has him fight for himself as an ultimate curse on the world, but for Yuji, Shrine has him fight for the world he lives in to remove other curses. Domains are also noticeably hard to do because you have to be aware of your curse. Todo doesn't seem like he's very self-aware about things most of the time, so it might be impossible for him to properly learn a domain expansion. But another hurdle is strength with barrier techniques. Domain amplification is much easier to learn because the idea is you're just stretching the reinforcement from your innate domain out of your body like aura in Hunter x Hunter. Barriers come from a similar principle, but with the domain expansion, what you're doing is you're grabbing a hold of surrounding space and adding it to your domain. This is something Megumi, for example, could never properly learn to do, because Megumi's curse is that he retreats into an area where he's already comfortable. He can't leave his comfort zone, and he has a whole extension technique around making expendable Shikigami that are much weaker than 2 base Shikigami he already has, because he'd rather learn how to minimize losses instead of risking things to take on the world around him and grow stronger. It's Gojo's advice that pushes him to be reckless and ignore his inner voice, to at least start trying to manifest his domain. But he can't do that in a stable way, so he's not properly able to create his own barrier and plug the 10 shadows in for whatever his guaranteed hit effect would be.